Your emotions can impact your daily life, relationships, and overall health. How do you manage your emotions in a healthy way? Find out more on today's episode of The Moment Show with Pastor Funke. I welcome everyone to another inspiring episode of The Moment Show with Pastor Funke. The show where you learn something new
every time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to our viewers that are at home and to those of our viewers in the audience. Thank you for joining us. Now, emotional wellness touches on all aspects of our lives. Learning how to understand, accept, and manage our thoughts and feelings, both positive and negative thoughts, is not easy by any means, but it is an important part of holistic health and well-being. We all know we should take breaks during the day, but we usually don't. It can be tough with work or taking care of others. Now, just 10 to 15 minutes can help lower stress levels. My guest today is a passionate advocate for emotional wellness, mental health, and wholeness. She's dedicated to helping women heal, grow, and thrive. As an addiction recovery coach, counselor, and speaker, she empowers individuals to overcome emotional wounds, break free from limiting patterns, and embrace a life of wholeness as designed by God. Opeyemi is the founder of the Wholesome Woman International, a thriving community committed to nurturing women in every facet of life, their spirits, souls, and bodies. Through this platform, she provides mentorship, support, and transformative conversations that inspire women to live liberated, emotional, healthy lives. Beyond her work, counseling, and advocacy, Opeyemi is an entrepreneur, event planner, and decorator. She's also a wife and mother. Studio audience, please join me as I welcome Mrs. Opeyemi Abiola to The Moment Show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome,
Thank
Opeyemi.
you.
It's
Thank you,
very
Pastor
nice to
Funke.
have you here.
Nice to be here as well.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you are doing with women, especially young women, in the area of wellness, emotional wellness. Opeyemi, would you say that emotional wellness, of all the aspects of overall wellness, is receiving the attention that it needs in our society and the African society at large?
I think now it is.
It's beginning
to. There's more, awareness. Now we have names for these things. Back in the day, it was very rare for you to see any of our mothers come and say, oh, I'm having a mental breakdown, or I'm having mental health issues, or I'm emotionally, down. It was very rare for you to see back in the day. But now I believe that, there's more awareness, which is a good thing. We still have to do more work, but so far so good. I think that, it's better. It's better than it was.
Yes, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank God for that, and I'm happy to hear that. Now, there are many causes, of course, for stress in life, but especially for young women. What would you say are the most common causes of emotional distress?
The most common cause for young women, for women at large, is, exhaustion. Exhaustion, yes, exhaustion. Because, we live in a society where women seem to be the strong ones emotionally. You are holding down the home, your kids, your husband. You have to, build your career or run a business. It's tiring. And so a lot of times women don't have means to which they can express, means to which they can, release such emotions. And then they begin to suppress, and it becomes so exhausting. It's tiring. And then before you know it, that's why you wonder sometimes why some mothers overbeat their children. I promise you, it's not because they have issues, it's because they are exhausted.
Just exhausted.
They are exhausted.
Wow. So, exhaustion, I imagine, affects physical health.
Absolutely.
Which in turn then affects the mental health
Yes.
of such people. So what do you advise for this woman, this mother, this wife, who's also, let's say, manager in an organization? How can they cope? What would you advise a woman to do?
Take care of yourself.
How? I've got all these responsibilities of me. I've got to take care of my child. I've got to look at their homework.
Yes.
And
I tell people, everybody will be fine. Everybody will be fine. I remember, I have two little boys. I took them for the first time. We haven't been away for a while, and for the first time, I took them away to, my parents, because I needed to really, really rest. And that period, I realized these children will be fine. They will be okay.
They'll be okay.
They will be okay.
Yeah, you need to take care of you.
Yes, you need to actually prioritize yourself, because you can't give from an empty jar. Yes. So, what you give your children is what you are building, what you're filling yourself with. Yeah. So if all that you have is pain, exhaustion, tiredness, that is what you will give to them.
And you mentioned something which is so important, that the reason many people simply just abuse, quote unquote, abuse their children is because they're just tired. They are at their wit's end, and they just, okay. So how should a person during that busy day, what little tips would you give a woman? Because this is Women's Month. We just celebrated Women's Day a week or so ago. What can a woman do to help her mental health within a crowded, busy day?
I would say in
the place of very limited options.
Yes. I would say in the midst of, all the chaos that's going on in one's life, find things that you really love to do. Find things that you really love to do. Even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Sometimes you would find me in the midst of cooking. I'm just sitting in one corner of my kitchen and watching a good movie. Even if I have to watch a 1-hour movie for 10 hours, I know that in between I am breaking. If you love to dance, dance. If you love whatever it is that you just love to do. I know that as women, as moms, we don't have the liberty of time. We don't have that 1 hour space, 5 hour space. But you see those short breaks that you can. Take a short nap. I feel like women have to build that superpower of learning how to take short naps, because that's all you get. So, and then if you can, delegate. Especially in the home front. I always say there's no reward for who works the most in heaven. As a mother, as a woman, there's no reward that you are the one doing all the work. You are the one, responsible for everything. You still have to work. You cater for the man, for the kids. You don't have to. If you can, please delegate. Please delegate.
And another thing I've found, me, is that, and our audience, sometimes some women think others can't do it as well as them. So we have that syndrome, that superwoman syndrome, that if I'm not there, it's not going to work, or it's not going to work as well. So that's another thing that we all need to watch out, especially young mothers, and I remember this very well, when my children were younger, because now they're, adults, and out on their own. Now, I wanted to ask you, and you started to allude to this, how important is sleep for a woman, especially when they have young children, and how can they get this sleep?
My friends make fun of me, Lord. They say I love to sleep. I don't joke with my sleep. And that's absolutely true, because I cannot operate on lack of sleep. Sleep is the only place as a woman where you get to shut down. I know that it can be difficult in the initial stages of, childbearing, having kids, having to breastfeed, have kids who eat at night is difficult. But please, if you can, sleep well. If you have to go to bed early, because now we have to be up early to, prepare them for school and our day and all of that, sleep early. Go to bed early. My household, my kids know me. Once it's 5 p.m., we've had dinner. We've had dinner by 7:30. My kids are at bed. They are sleeping already. By 8:30, you won't find me outside. I'm in my bed because it's too important. You can't operate, because by the time you wake up the next day, you're already, before 8 a.m., you're tired. So your day is ruined out of exhaustion. So sleep is absolutely important. Don't compromise on it.
Yes.
Don't compromise on it.
Yes.
Please.
Some women, and it's, I must say that I totally agree with you. When I was working actively, now I run my business, so I have, I'm not my own boss, right? Not that I actually have to. I have so much that I do, but because I can decide that I'm not going to do this today and I'm going to do that, it's easier for me. I'm going to ask this question, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back and answer it. In the past, it used to be that mental health issues was determined by when people start taking off their clothes, and, when they started to pull their hair or whatever. Now we know that it's beyond that. What are the signs that we should be looking for in young women, middle-aged women, whatever, that are already having emotional issues? So we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Opeyemi Abiola. Back in just a moment. All right, so this is the Moment Show with Pastor Funke. And if you are just joining us in this episode, we've been talking to my guest, Mrs. Opeyemi Abiola, who is a mental health expert. And she's been talking to us about the signs and things that we need to be looking at. So what should the signs be that once you begin to see this in your sister, your friend, your co-worker, your church sister, this is the time that you must raise an alarm?
For me, one of the first things I always look after is the change in their personalities. So, for example, you have someone who you know as bubbly, who you know as exciting, just all of a sudden becomes awfully quiet. You know that this is not you. And then before you know, the person begins to withdraw. Right? So when you see people, they don't want to even be around anyone, they're in their room 24/7, you know that there's a problem. You know that there's something going on with them. Unnecessary mood swings, being cranky. I say it a lot that 90% of adults are going through mental health issues. We are not just ready for the conversation because we have to dig deep. Somebody is out there and all of a sudden they just start shouting at you. They're just, and you wonder, what did I do? Where did this come from? Yes. The person is angry. The person has suppressed pain. And so a lot of times we are looking for avenues to release this anger and this pain. And so that, and before somebody begins to tear their clothes and, run on the street, it starts from there. It starts from there. And so if that is not properly dealt with, it begins to escalate into,
into something
else.
Yes. Change in personality, mood swings, doing things that they wouldn't normally do. And I know a lady who I talked about not brushing her teeth, not wanting to bathe. Okay, I want to ask you this question. I was talking to a lady not long ago, and this person had suffered some trauma as a young child. And it seemed the last time I spoke to the person last year, she was talking about it, this same issue. And then I saw her this year and she was speaking about the issue. And I said to her, it occurred to me in that moment that this person needs help. This person needs to talk about this issue. Now, the person is a grown woman now, really, But when I suggested that, I think maybe you should. And I said, look, let me get a pastor that you can, because I didn't want to say, what are the responses that we are seeing in terms of people getting counseling or therapy, for these issues? How are we getting, how open are people to getting help that because of the misconceptions that once you start having counseling with the pastor or something, then they're saying that you're mad or something like that. What do you,
I
what's your
think
experience?
that it is just gradually becoming acceptable, because I would say even now it's still difficult to get people to not just accept for, but even pay for therapy. You know, people are, why do I have to? Why I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me. Or people think that you can pray through. Yes, you can. You know, faith is a big aspect of, you know, your emotional wellness, your well-being, and your mental health in general. But if you don't tackle the issues, if you don't break them down, if you don't, you know,
Talk about them
it,
and bring them to
you
the
know,
surface.
you would just keep, it's just like you're compressing you know, something that is very hot. You just keep putting and putting layers and layers and layers and layers. The truth is, eventually one day it will all burst out. And you know, most often than not, the way it bursts out is not, that's why you see that somebody from nowhere just carries knife and stabs somebody. It's not because, it's not something that, it's not the emotion. And you will wonder, why would you stab this person? Because you're having an argument over this cup of tea. You know, but it is the reaction from something that happened maybe 20 years ago.
Yes.
That had been compressed.
A pent up, you know,
yes,
emotion.
and that's what we do as adults a lot of time. We compress, compress.
And then
compress.
they just boil over one day,
out.
and it leads to very dangerous situations. I wanted to ask this question because, especially for young women who maybe they're newlyweds, they're new brides, and the mothers and stuff. How can husbands or significant others, maybe they're not even married, but they're in a relationship that's serious, how can husbands in particular help to nurture their wives' emotional health?
Help them in the house, you know, have be a safe space. I always say to people, you know, we keep saying as a community, oh, there's no safe space, everybody's looking for a safe space, but you yourself, are you a safe space? You know, be that safe space where your spouse or your partner, you know, can come to and say, oh, I'm going through this at the workplace, I'm experiencing this in my business. Yes, ma'am.
Well, when you say they should help, can you be specific
okay,
to some of the young husbands around here?
So for example, you have a wife, you know, you have young kids. Help out in the sense that if she's in the kitchen, you can help keep the kids busy. If in the morning, because I would use myself as an example, the routine in my home can be all over the place sometimes. And so if I'm in the kitchen, my husband would sometimes, you know, do the bathing, the getting ready for school, you know, or if I have to cook and they need to get their homework done, like it's a partnership.
It's joint collaboration.
It's joint collaboration. So one person doesn't have to carry, and that's where the burden of now being that's where exhaustion now comes in, because I'm carrying everything.
But wait, I mean, the husband is also saying, well, I go out there and I bring the bacon. I'm stressed too from work. You know, I've got all these challenges. How can they make this work?
The family, you know, home has a huge role to play in this.
Yes.
And I'm saying that because I grew up seeing my father in the kitchen.
Bless him.
Like I grew up, even after being married, and he would come to my home to, you know, he would wake up in the morning to get my kids ready for school, get their meals ready for school. Awesome. You know, so I saw that. So my own brothers will not see it as a big deal, even if they have to work, to still come home and help their wives. Yeah. So the home front has a huge role to play. Yeah. We can only speak, but if these men do not see a vivid example, something to follow, is always difficult. Yeah. So it starts in the home front.
It starts in the home front. Awesome. I grew up seeing my dad pound yam.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, get in there and he would do it, you know, and he was a prince. Right? So, you know, for all of us that are out there and, you know, you're feeling like you're losing it, it's time to get help. Yeah. It's time to sound the alarm. Now, you don't have to tell everybody in the world, but you can find one or two trusted people to say, I'm not sleeping well, I'm confused, I'm forgetting large pieces of the day. Things are happening and you need help. And please, there is no stigma to saying you need help. It's better
Absolutely.
gotten, the quicker the better.
Absolutely.
Okoyemi, thank you so
Thank
very
you for
much.
having
You've
me.
been awesome. Thank you. Thank you for
having
coming
me.
to the Moment Show.
Thank you. Thank
God
you for
bless
having
you.
me.
God
I
bless
appreciate
you.
it. Thank
We're
you.
going to take a break, and when we come back, I will answer one or two of your questions. So we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, our audience, and we are back, and we have two questions that are coming from the audience this time. So go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Ma. There's this saying that when a mother doesn't directly have to care for her child, she gets help. I don't know, but there's this saying that you're not sacrificial or you don't love your child enough. How do you cope with that kind of environment?
Okay, I don't think that's necessarily true. And those who make that kind of judgment, especially when they don't know what the real issues are, what has informed that issue? Why did I have to get a carer as opposed to me caring? You're the only one that knows what your circumstances are. So what you need to do is to be sure in your mind that you are taking the best decision for you and your child, right? So if you are able to make that determination, and you know your conscience does not convict you, then you just have to jettison what anybody else is saying, and you focus on you. You focus on yourself, okay? And so that's what I'll say. Because there are many factors that come into play when you take a decision. If you can't feed your child, what good is it if you're at home, your child is hungry, you're hungry, and you are actually now angry that you can't go out because of that child. So no, just dump it, focus on what God has put in your heart to do, and keep praying. Okay? All right.
Okay, my question is, how do you become of help to someone who is not getting help from their spouse, and she's also not ready to get help outside, but you can actually see how much the pressure is weighing on them?
Yeah, good question. I think the first thing is to be there. To be there. And when I say be there, not just that you are there physically, but you are present. In other words, one of the best things to do with somebody who needs help like that is to actually listen. When people even come to you to ask for help, most of the time they don't really want what you say. They just want to be able to unburden. They want to be able to talk about what what they're going through. And many times in the midst of that talking, they're actually getting the answers that they need, even without anybody telling them. As they're talking about it, it's occurring to them that this option is there and this help can be there. So that's number one. Be present to hear them out. The other thing is, of course, encouragement. It's not the time to point out their faults. And I told you the last time that this thing will get you in trouble. Didn't I say so? That's not the time to talk to them about that, because I bet you by the time they're even saying it, they themselves, they are seeing some of those faults. And if you need to, later on when they're healing, is when you now tell them, this wasn't a right decision to make. So that's not the time. It's the time to encourage them. It's the time to say to encourage them. And that encouragement could even be, why don't we speak to somebody together? I'll go with you. Offer to be there with them. Because anybody that you are telling to go look for example, I'll meet your pastor for counseling, they may feel condemned already in themselves. Another thing is to let them know that there is hope. There is hope after this. You can make it after this. and you can get well. Okay, so is offering that helping, and sometimes they may even need more help with, like money. Like, okay, let me just buy you a bag of groceries and buy you some bread, some eggs, some things. Just show love to the people. That's what they need more than anything else. Okay. All right, so we are out of time. We are out of time. And again, special thanks to my guest, Okpeyemi Abiola, and to my amazing studio audience. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for all the questions. God bless you. Stay well, stay tuned, and we'll see you next time on The Moment Show with Pastor Funke. Welcome.